Disturbing true stories untold.
In Abbeville, Alabama, the streets grow quiet early, and old warnings are still taken seriously. For generations, people have spoken of a tall woman in black who appears after dark, following footsteps, waiting at the edge of streetlights, and reaching out when no one expects it. Some say the stories are just to scare children. Others say they learned the truth the hard way. These are 3 spooky encounters with Huggin Molly, a legend that still keeps people close to home. The hug that didn't feel human. Chapter 1. The late walk home. In Abbeville, Alabama, people still whisper the name Huggin Molly. They say she is a tall woman in black who shows up when the streets go quiet and the air turns heavy. The old warning is simple: get home before dark. Some laugh at the name, but after midnight, nobody wants to test it. Even grown-ups cross the street to stay in the light. Nobody says her name loud. A grown man finished a late shift and chose the short walk home. He knew the legend, yet he told himself it was only a story meant to keep kids from wandering. Still, he kept his hands in his pockets and stayed near the pools of light. The shops were closed, and every window looked like a dark eye. He listened for cars, but heard none. Between the streetlights, the shadows looked deep, like holes cut into the road. A damp smell rose from the grass, and the wind pushed small bits of paper along the curb. He passed a fence, then a narrow alley, and felt the night press closer. He tried to think about dinner, but his mind kept drifting back to that name. The silence felt planned. Then another set of footsteps answered his own. Not fast, not sloppy. Careful, patient steps that stayed behind him. Chapter 2. Someone right behind him. The footsteps stayed behind him, calm and steady. That was what scared him most, because it didn't sound like a drunk or a prankster. It sounded like someone who knew the street and knew his pace. He told himself it was a neighbor coming home, but his skin still prickled and his mouth went dry. Every few steps, he caught a faint smell like wet cloth. He stopped under a street lamp and held his breath. The footsteps stopped too, perfectly timed. No cough, no voice, no phone light. Only the buzz of the lamp and the distant bark of a dog far away. He waited for the person to step into the light, but nobody did. The shadow under the lamp looked too dark, like it was thicker than the air. He turned slowly and scanned the road. Empty sidewalk, empty porch, empty driveway. Yet he could feel eyes on him, like somebody was staring from the dark gap between 2 houses. He listened for breathing and heard nothing. A car should have passed by now, but the street stayed dead. He crossed the street to test it, and the quiet seemed to cross with him. When he started walking again, the steps returned, closer than before. He sped up, and they sped up. He slowed down, and they slowed down. A soft brush of fabric tickled the air near his shoulder, like a sleeve almost touching him. He wanted to run. Chapter 3. The Arms in the Dark. He reached a darker stretch where one streetlight flickered like it was tired. The glow jumped, then steadied, and the shadows beside the sidewalk seemed to move with it. He heard his own breathing and the tiny click of his keys in his pocket. He told himself it was only nerves, but his legs felt weak, like he had stepped into the wrong part of the night. To his right was a fence line and a narrow yard full of weeds. In the corner of his eye, he saw something rise from that darkness, tall, thin, and dressed in black. It looked like a long dress or cloak. He turned his head, and for a second, he saw the shape clearly, like a person standing too close. Then the light blinked, and the figure melted back into the shadow. It came at him without warning, fast and silent. No running steps, no warning breath. Arms wrapped around his chest and shoulders in a tight hug that felt wrong. The grip was cold and strong, like wet cloth and hard pressure at the same time. Even as he ran, he could still feel the hug, like a mark left on his skin. Chapter 4. The story he never took back. He hit his front steps and almost fell. Inside, he slammed the door and locked it, then checked the lock again like his hands could not believe it. The house was dark and quiet, but the quiet did not feel safe. Floorboards popped softly, and every sound made him flinch. He kept listening for a knock that never came. His shoulders still felt squeezed. After a few minutes, he dared to peek through the curtain. The street was empty, and the porch light showed only still air. That should have made him feel better, but it didn't. If it was a real person, where did they go so fast? He stared at the yard, half expecting a tall shadow to slide across the grass. The light did not reach the far corner. Sleep did not come easy. When he finally lay down, he felt as if the room behind him was crowded. He kept picturing arms opening in the dark. In the morning, he found faint red marks on his shoulders, as if fingers had pressed through cloth. He tried to laugh at himself, but his laugh sounded thin. In daylight, the street looked normal, which made the memory feel even stranger. Later, when someone mentioned Huggin Molly, he went quiet. He told the story once, simple and steady. Something hugged him in the dark, and it felt cold and strong. He never added wild details, and he never took it back. After that, he chose longer routes with brighter lights because he believed something had been waiting for him, and it might still be waiting. The warning that outlived generations. Chapter 1. A sound. Outside. In Abbeville, Alabama, the Huggin Molly legend was used like a bedtime warning. Be home before dark. People said a tall woman in black appeared on quiet streets and followed anyone who stayed out late. Some called it a joke, but they still lowered their voices when they said her name. Even adults kept porch lights on, as if light could stop a story. One night, a mother waited up for her son. He was supposed to be home, but the minutes kept slipping by, and each one felt longer than the last. The house was still, The clock ticked loud, and the air coming through the window felt cold and damp. She told herself he was fine, yet she checked the road again and again, praying for the sound of his steps. Then she heard quick steps outside, like someone crossing the yard, and then a sudden stop. It was too close to be on the street. She listened for a voice or a laugh, but nothing followed. The silence that came after felt heavy, like the dark had leaned against the house. Even the crickets seemed to pause. She thought of her son and felt a sharp fear. She stood and walked to the front door, trying not to scare herself. She cracked the door just an inch and felt cold air spill in. The steps returned, slow and careful, like someone moving while trying not to be seen. Her hand froze on the lock. Chapter 2. Two shapes in the light. The mother opened the door wider and stepped onto the porch. The light above her painted the yard in a weak yellow glow, leaving the edges dark and hard to read. She squinted down the road, searching for her son's face, and tried to ignore the tight feeling in her chest. The night smelled like damp grass, and the quiet felt too sharp. She kept one hand on the door. Then she saw him. He was hurrying, not strolling, with his shoulders high and his head turning like he was listening behind him. He did not wave. He did not call out. His breath looked faint in the cool air. He moved like a person trying to reach safety without admitting he was scared, and that made her worry more. He looked older than he did that morning. Behind him, near the line where the porch light stopped, a second shape moved. It was taller than him and darker than the night, and it stayed just outside the glow. She could not see a face, only a long black outline, like a dress or coat. The mother gripped the door frame so hard her fingers hurt. She wanted to rush out and grab her son, but something held her back, like the yard had turned dangerous. The figure seemed to know the light's edge, like it was a rule. The air felt colder, like it was reaching for them. Chapter 3. Run. Don't look back. The son glanced over his shoulder, and his face changed in a way his mother would never forget. He did not shout for help. He just ran harder, like he knew yelling would not save him. His feet hit the road fast, loud and uneven. In the porch light, she saw his hands shaking as he pumped his arms, and she knew this was not normal fear. The mother tried to step off the porch, but her legs would not move. She felt trapped between two fears, leaving the doorway or waiting too long. The porch light buzzed above her head, and the yard beyond it looked darker with every second. She could feel her heart pounding in her throat. She called his name once, but her voice sounded small in the night. The dark figure stayed at the edge of the light. It did not charge into the glow. It hovered near the line, keeping the same distance, like it was playing with them. The mother could not see a face, but she felt a tension, like something staring straight at the door. The son hit the steps and grabbed the railing, gasping. For a split second, he looked past her into the yard, eyes wide, like he felt arms behind him. The mother yanked him inside, and the cold night air rushed in with him. She slammed the door with all her strength and twisted the lock. Chapter 4. The door slam, silence. Inside the house, the son leaned against the wall, trying to breathe. The mother kept her hand on the lock, afraid it might move. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They listened for steps on the porch, for any sign of movement outside. The only sound was their breathing and the soft hum of the porch light. A floorboard creaked, and they both jumped. Nothing came. No knock, no scratch, no whisper. The silence felt wrong, like the night had swallowed the sound on purpose. The mother looked through a crack in the curtain and saw only the empty yard. The son finally said he felt someone behind him the whole way home. He said it stayed just outside the light, close enough to make his skin crawl. He did not claim to see a face, only a tall black outline that moved without noise. When he finished, his hands were still shaking. After that night, they changed small habits. The porch light stayed on until morning. The son stopped taking shortcuts and never walked alone after dark. In Abbeville, that is how Huggin Molly survives, a quiet fear that keeps families close. The Woman in Black. Chapter 1. Adults don't joke about it.
The coldness seeps into everything.
In Abbeville, Alabama, the Huggin Molly story is not only for kids. Some adults say they have seen a tall woman in black, standing where streetlights fade and the sidewalks turn quiet. They do not brag about it. They talk like they are careful, like the night might hear them. They do not claim proof, only a memory that sticks. One man finished work late and headed to his truck alone. He was tired and ready to go home, not looking for a scare. The parking area was quiet, and the town fell asleep. He told himself the legend was only talk, the kind that sticks to old streets. Still, he kept his eyes on the pools of light and avoided the darkest corners. He held his keys tight. Between the lights, the shadows looked thick, like the dark had weight. His keys jingled too loud, and his footsteps echoed off closed buildings. A faint smell of wet dirt drifted in, and the air felt cooler near the ground. He noticed that even the wind seemed to hold back. The silence was so complete that he could hear his own heartbeat and the buzz of a lamp. Near the corner of a fence line, where the light did not reach, he saw a shape that did not belong. It stood upright, tall and still, like a person watching. He slowed down without meaning to. The closer he got, the more it felt like the shape was waiting for him. He told himself to keep walking, but his feet did not want to move. It felt aware of him. Chapter 2. A shape at the corner. At first he tried to explain it away. Maybe it was a trash bag caught on a post or a shadow from the fence. He blinked and shifted his angle, hoping the shape would turn into something normal. He even looked away and looked back, like that would break the spell. But it stayed tall and dark in the same spot, and the air around it looked colder. From where he stood, it looked like a person wearing a long black dress or coat. The light could not find its face, only shoulders and a narrow head. The outline was clean, too clean for a bush or a sign. He felt silly for being scared, yet his chest stayed tight and his breath came short. The street lamp buzz sounded louder than it should. He forced himself to keep walking. With each step, the shape seemed clearer, as if the darkness was letting him see only what it wanted. He crossed the lot to get a better view, and the shape did not vanish like a trick of light. It stayed, calm and patient. He noticed his own footsteps were loud, while the shape made none. A damp smell, like wet cloth, drifted toward him. Then it moved, just a little, like a lean forward. Not a wave, not a full step, more like it had noticed him and decided to come closer. Chapter 3. The feeling of reaching arms. He reached his truck and fumbled for the right key. The small metal clink sounded huge in the empty lot, like a bell in a church. He tried to laugh at himself, but his throat stayed tight and his mouth felt dry. The shape at the corner was still there, just outside the light, like it had not moved at all. He kept his back to the truck, afraid to bend down. Behind him came a soft sound, not quite a step, more like cloth brushing against something. He froze and held his breath. The air felt colder near his shoulders, like someone had leaned close. He listened for breathing and heard none. The street lamp buzzed, then flickered once, and the dark seemed to swell. He told himself not to turn, because turning would make it real. The sound came again, closer. He felt a strange pressure, as if invisible arms were opening behind him, ready to wrap around his chest. His hand shook so hard he nearly dropped the keys. He tried the lock, missed, tried again, and his stomach twisted. When he finally forced himself to turn, he expected to see a face, or at least a shadow, rushing in. But the corner looked empty. The light showed only pavement and fence. Still, the fear did not leave, because he could feel it. The heavy presence, the cold air, the sense of being watched. Chapter 4. Why they don't walk late. He drove home watching his mirrors. Every time his headlights swept over a sidewalk, he expected to see that tall black outline standing in the beam. The roads looked normal, but his body stayed tense, like the night had followed him into the car. He kept his hands tight on the wheel and listened for a sound that was not there. In daylight, the corner near the fence looked harmless. It was just pavement and a street lamp and ordinary shadows. That made him feel worse, because it meant the dark could hide anything and still look innocent by morning. He kept replaying the moment the shape leaned forward and the way the air seemed to turn colder. He wondered why it never made a sound. He told a few people what happened, expecting jokes. Instead, they went quiet. One person nodded and said they avoid certain streets after dark. Another said they have seen a tall figure for a second and then lost it when they blinked. Someone else said the feeling comes first, like being watched, and the sight comes after. No one said the name loud. After that, he changed his habits. He parked under bright lights, kept his keys ready, and hurried to his door. And he did not want to feel those invisible arms again.
Disturbing true stories untold.